are good to go whenever you want.
Okay, thank you so much, Vanessa. So a very, very warm welcome to my speech, which is going to be about the topic from the projectification of economies to the projectification of societies, and what are the opportunities and challenges in this trend. So, who am I? A short word. I think pictures say more than words. My background is I'm an engineering manager. I worked for 12 years in the German car industry at BMW, and you see here one of my projects that I was managing. I'm based in Berlin. I'm there the professor at HTW. This is the University of Applied Sciences in Berlin. I'm a very active member, and not only member, but also board member, and now member of the Presidential Advisory Board of the German Project Management Association, GPM. And since 2021, so since half a year, I'm vice president of IPMA, of our roof association, for the remit of membership and young crew. Here you can see some of my studies that I was conducting, and particularly the one here in the middle I'm going to talk about. In addition, I'm not only lecturing in Berlin, but also in Shanghai at Tongji University, in Reykjavik, and at the Tecnológico de Monterrey in Mexico. So, and something that is really, really also very important to me myself is to enhance the diversity, and particularly to enforce women to become successful project managers. So now let's have a look at the structure of my talk. I'm going first to give a definition about projectification. We'll have a look at the projectification both in economy and society. We will have a short look at the reasons for this development, because that is also unclear. Why is this so? And then we'll have a look at the opportunities, but also on the shades, on the shadows of projectification. And also I'm giving an outlook on future research. So what is projectification? It's a word, it's a new creation by Christophe Midler in 1995. He did his research on the car manufacturer Renault. And what he there found is that more and more projects become the increasingly normal form of business organization. So that is a phenomenon that he observed for the first time 25 years ago. And another good definition is that this is the change of the organizational structure, this projectification trends. That is that the firms are putting more emphasis on the project dimension. And previously it was strong functional units where project played a subordinate role, to today where projects play the center stage and the functional units acting as labor pools. So we see a shift towards project as the main organizational form. Here I would like to refer to the projectification in economies. You might have heard that we did conducted the study in order to evaluate how big is the extent of project work in 3 different economies. So we started with the German economy. Here you find the different industrial sectors in the German economy, and also we wanted to understand how high is their share of project work. So that was a study conducted in 2014, and we asked the people, how was it 1 year ago? And here you see the share of these industrial sectors in the German economy. And what we found out already in 2013, the share was nearly 35%. To get a better feeling, is this a lot or not, we also duplicated the study in Norway and in Iceland, two very different economies than the German one, and we found similar figures. So 33% in Norway, 28% in Iceland. So we can conclude that about 1/3 of the economies already in 2013 were about project management, based on project management. And we also asked about the forecast for 5 years in the future, and we found here that the forecast was a further increase. So for example, 41% for Germany. And then we replicated the study for China, and that is here the red arrow, and we saw that China is even forecasting for the year 2022 to be over 50%. And that studies were done before COVID-19. So it would be really interesting also to look at the impact of COVID-19, and particularly the push in digitalization, in new work, because all these are projects and which were not considered in these forecasts yet. So what we're planning now is to do new research, to update this research, to get an understanding were the forecasts right, or what I personally think is that the situation is even more than forecasted, that more projects are conducted than we thought they would. So that was projectification of economy. But we also see trends like in Germany, this is a publication, an advertisement of a Home Depot, and it says, say it with your own project. Yeah, so building a cradle, for example, is perceived to be a project. But also you see book titles like Pregnancy Project, yeah, the 9 months of pregnancy being a project of a woman, or the husband project, yeah. So all indicators showing that projects are also now entering our private field. But not only this, we also see that project management is taking place today in hospitals, at schools, but also, of course, in cities, smart city projects, rebuilding cities to become smart, but also things like culture, a concert is a big project. And all in all, we can conclude that we actually are living in a project society. So what we can see, obviously, is from the organizational projectification, this trend is spreading over to the personal projectification and the societal projectification. So what does it mean? Let's have a look at this. Let's see what the project status of projectification is. So we can see that obviously it is not happening, this projectification, only in classic project-based industries like the construction sector, but also now in public sector, in policy making, in politics, in performing arts, in sports, in scientific research, and in private life. And what we can conclude that it is really a multifaceted phenomenon that should be studied at its own rights. Yeah, so not an exception anymore, but really a new societal phenomenon. And an interesting observation is also that it is becoming a part of our human condition, these projects. And to conclude, Lundin speaks about the project society. And a colleague of mine, a German researcher, even says that this projectification can be seen as the 4th industrial revolution or the next Konradiev cycle. So what are the reasons for this trend? That is, of course, an interesting question. And these are only my personal assumptions, which I would like to share with you. So project management and applying project management methods lead to lower cost, reduced risk, improved success rates, greater efficiency, improved customer satisfaction, more stakeholder satisfaction, and all in all, a greater competitive advantage for organizations. So that's the reason why organizations have discovered and are actively applying project management. So these are clear benefits. And my assumption is not only for organizations. So I think because more and more people are convinced that this systematic methodological approach, which makes the success of their one-off endeavors more likely, this is a very, very strong force for this projectification. And people who once understood that they can apply the tools of project management wherever, where the scope is fixed, but the resources and budgets are limited, that they are so convinced that they are infected with the magic effectiveness of the project management toolbox. So that's my personal thought, and I would like to do more research to understand if this assumption actually is correct. So let's have a look at, for example, project-based learning at schools, in kindergartens, at universities. And we know from first research that this is a really big opportunity to learn, because it prepares the young generation in a good way for success in academia and to achieve both professional but also personal success, because it readies the young people to that they are able to cope with the challenges of their life and of the world. It also leads students to master the core academic content better, and it helps them to build critical thinking, problem solving techniques, collaboration, communication, and self-management skills, which are really, really important in our today's world. And it is also a nice way because it advances educational equity. Because it doesn't matter if the students are and the parents of the students and scholars are rich or poor, because they all start from the scratch. And therefore it empowers opportunities, equal opportunities from the early kindergarten age onwards. And therefore it's projects can make a difference in the student's life, because it is from the academic, social, and emotional point of view that they have something that they will remember their whole life. So these are the positive sides, but there are obviously also negative sides, which I call the shadows of projectification, and it would be not realistic to not consider these two. So let's have a look at labor. How does labor change because of the increase of projectification? So we can say that there is a masculinization of the post-bureaucratic work practices, meaning it is hardworking, being successful, individually working to become successful as a project manager. This is understood by masculine work practices. And particularly agile project work is easier to be controlled, because we can have weekly increments with the sprints. And so what was before the traditional waterfall projects, leaving the project managers with a lot of freedom, is now with the agile practices also not possible anymore. And we also know from first research results that agile project work can lead to more stress and burnout. And burnout particularly is something that project managers have a high probability to be suffering from. But another thing is also that because of virtual project work, it is by far easier now to outsource the project management to the cheapest project resources, which again, of course, is a big competitive factor between project managers. So that was the shadows on the work. Now let's have a look at the shadows of projectification for the individual. So we know that project work has a lot of emotional consequences because of the high intrinsic motivation, but they are also very emotionally charged, and they could be therefore also addictive and harmful spaces for the individual. But we also know that the shift from unlimited line work in the functional areas to project work on a temporary basis leads to by far more uncertainty for the individual regarding their personal life, and the lack of long-range planning, which, for example, has an impact for founding a family or maybe buying a house or an apartment, because that is what, again, the banks want to see. Where is the long-term job guarantee here, which project managers normally do not have. So what we see is that companies shift their risk from themselves towards the individuals. And what we also see is a lot of disappointment and frustration, because many times project participants feel powerless. They work a lot, but then they are the principals or sponsors who decide different things. And so there is a declining sense of progress, hope, and personal worthiness, which also was seen here by a couple of researchers in first studies. And what is also important is a study from Beata Jalocha from Poland, that she is predicting that we are getting a two-class project society with a projectocracy, which are the ones who are employed and the principals of the project, and the so-called projectariat, so coming from the proletariat, but in that case, project managers without long-term stable working conditions and in precarious living conditions. But also for organizations, the projectification trend has an impact. It is, for example, that human resource management, that they need to understand project management and the competences of project managers much better in order to employ the right people. But it also has an impact on the logic of coordination and control of work in the organizations. And it's also, there is first research stating that there is a lack of long-term sustainability of organizations and societies due to the increase of projects. So we see that also organizations are not only the ones who benefit from this trend. Now let's have a look at the societies. And what we see is that there is a new distribution of capital and change in power in the societies due to the increase of project managers. We also see new power relations in the societies because the standardization and the professional certification and initiatives play new roles here in the field. And what we see is also a creeping into established professional identities, because there is now this new profession of project managers, PMO leaders, program managers, portfolio managers, who are taking over and changing also the perception of professions in the societies. And again, we also see here ethical problems because of a lack of long-term sustainability, both of organizations, but also the big changes in the societies due to this projectification trend. So I would like to show you now how we can look at projectification, at the levels of projectification. So to which levels, layers in our society are impacted. So we can look at projectification from the micro perspective, looking at the individual. We can look at it from the meso perspective, that is the organization's perspective. We can look at it from the macro perspective. So for example, looking at industrial sectors like construction industry or public administration. But we can also look at it from the mega perspective, so looking at the country, looking at the society, and on the meta perspective, that would be then that we look at all organizations and societies, and looking now at the global trends. And if we then have a look at what has already been well researched, we can say few research on the individual level, quite a lot on the organizational level, few research on the macro level, few research on the mega level, and very few research on the meta level. So a lot of research possibilities deriving from this new trend. So I would like to summarize now what are the current research challenges. So we want to get a deeper understanding from the institutional perspective. What does this projectification trend mean? What are the consequences on individuals, but also on the organization of work and the society at large? And looking at aspects like bounded rationality, power, politics, cultural norms, and constructs, which we all have not thoroughly understood by this new trend. But we also want to understand we do not look at it from the silo perspective, so only looking at the different disciplines, but also now from the horizontal and vertical perspective, so to get a holistic approach. But also we want to understand then what are the blank spots for projects already constitute the modus operandi. So also there is not sufficiently research done. And I think what is also important to look at it from the macroeconomic perspective. So what are the drivers, the hinders, the consequences of this trend? And I pointed out now a lot of shadows, but I think what is still lacking is what are the positive effects of projectification. So by the critical rethinking project management group that did a lot of research in understanding these dark sides, but we forgot to think of what are the positive elements here in this trend. And in general, I think we need by far more quantitative and qualitative studies. So, concluding, projectification is both a cultural, societal, and discursive phenomenon. And it's not a matter of project management researchers alone. And I suggest that we should look at it as a multifaceted phenomenon. So looking not only from the organizational theory point of view, but also from the psychological or societal and macroeconomic view on this projectification trend. And therefore, I pledge for more diverse research teams and looking from the various disciplines in order to better understand this highly relevant phenomenon of our today's time. And also to understand, and if we have understood, then hopefully to prevent the development of this two-class society, which we see already first indicators, but still it is time to counteract. So I would like to conclude that I think all young children should get the chance to learn project management early in their youth in order to be able to cope with complex endeavors using the magic project management toolbox. But also, I would like that the institutional stakeholders should better cooperate to prevent the shadows of projectification and to safeguard the large opportunities of this trend. And I think if we accompany, if we manage and steer this better, then projectification can become the guarantor of success, of innovativeness, of competitiveness, and a better quality of life for all people in all societies worldwide. So thank you very much. Muchas gracias for listening to me. And now I'm looking forward to get your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. It was a pleasure. I like the way you put the shadows there and that we have to consider. But if not, yeah. So now if anyone has any questions, you can use the Q&A chat of Zoom or the chat of OVA, or you can raise your hand and I can give you permission to talk, whatever you prefer. Let me open my app so I can check. Refresh.
Maybe I can ask a question to the participants, yeah, if
Yeah,
they
why
see
not?
it also this way. Do you also see the shadows? And of course, particularly, I would like to better understand the opportunities of this trend. Yeah, I see Jesus.
Yeah.
Thank you. Muchas gracias, Jesus. Con mucho gusto.
Okay. I'm looking at the app as we have two different channels for you.
Okay, yeah, I understand. Yeah.
I'm looking.
Not easy, but you're a multitasking professional. I know, Vanessa.
Know that. Okay. So I've seen a hand raised. Or it was Jesus thumb up. Yeah. Any questions there?
Maybe also if you digest what you heard now, I would very much like get in touch with me. It could also be, I agree, the multicultural aspects. Yeah. So that was, of course, a more European perspective. So I think that is what we also need, a better and deeper understanding from the different cultural and also economical points of view. maybe there are different perspectives also on the shadows but also on the bright sides of projectification, which again, I think we need more research to get a deeper understanding. So if you feel that you would like to contribute to this, either by an interview or by that we start maybe a research study in your countries, again, please get in touch with me either via IPMA, or you find me easily in Google. I can also give my email address here in the chat. So I think that would be really, really great if we could start with this speech with doing more research in the specific countries, not only in Europe, but worldwide.
I have a message of Angela that says, thank you, Yvonne. It was really interesting.
Thank you.
There you go. Okay, I think we can, I can open a community in Huba, that is our app for this conference, with your topic. And if anyone comes with a question, well, here we have one. I don't know if you can see Q&A.
Yes, I can see it, yeah. Von Javier. Yeah. Do you think that the projectification of the system will lead to an increase in the number of projects not related to engineering and technology? If this is the case, do you think project management will be taught in different undergraduate, different from engineering? Yes, yes, Javier. I'm very convinced that this is it started in engineering. But I see today that it is spreading in all parts of organizations. So, for example, public administration, in politics, in the ministries, that they understand that with the tools of project management, that they can better manage their endeavors. But as I said, also in hospitals or in culture, or in sports. Look at the European Football Championship, for example, Olympic Games. These are nothing else than projects. And I think with this mindset, seeing on a more abstract way, what is a project? Yeah, it's something unique, a unique endeavor with limited budget and time, with a fixed time frame. And if you look at this, you understand that even making a new law, for example, for a state, for a country, is a project, and that the tools of project management can very much help the ones responsible to become successful. And therefore, yes, I see this, and I think that I would even start in the kindergarten or in grammar school with teaching young children project management, yeah, because this is not something that is only limited to undergraduate or graduate students, but we also have first school pilot projects here in the US, but also in Germany, where the whole learning is based on projects. And it is very, very effective. So I think it is a tremendous change, yeah, in our whole way of coping with big endeavors. And that is, I think, what the 21st century is about. Because if you look at the big challenges like climate change, like fighting against refugee crisis and so on, these are all enormous challenges where we need a lot of really, really well-educated project managers. Yeah, not only, of course, in project management, but I think that this is a mindset that helps them to better cope with the complexity of all the endeavors that we are dealing with.
Thank you. Javier, is it clear? He said thank you. Yes. Okay. So let's, if there are no more questions, let's close this session. I will go back to you with all the questions that came up, that can come up through the app, so you can answer them typing or anything. Okay, thank you very much again, Yvonne, for accepting our invitation, for being here, for preparing this presentation for us. And we hope we see you soon again, maybe in person better.
That would, of course, be really, really nice. Thank you so much for the invitation. It was a great pleasure to be with you, and I wish you a successful conference.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. We are starting at 2 with new parallel sessions.